I'm Rachel. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be repotting some plants, or I guess I'm going to. You're going to watch me repot plants. But I recently got quite a few new plants. I'll link my houseplant haul in the iCard. Which way is it? It's been a while since I've linked anything. But I will be repotting all of those plants, and I have a couple other plants that need to be repotted as well. So I already went ahead and I washed all of my pots. They're sitting and just kind of soaking in some of the essential oils right now. I washed them with a mixture of hot soapy water, of course, and the soap I use Dr. Bronner's Sal Suds. It has some essential oils in it that they smell so good. It's like pine sol, but 1,000 times better, but it has some like pine oil in it and things. And then I also added some other essential oils. Sometimes I'll use like thieves oil, but usually I'll just do like lemon and oregano and maybe like some thyme or basil. I like to use herbal essential oils that have a tendency to protect other plants out in the garden. I figure it's going to kill or keep away the bugs that were possibly in the pots previously, because a lot of these pots have been, used, and I'm not sure which ones I actually transplanted plants out of them or which ones had plants die in them. So I just wanted to wash all of them. Some of them never really were used, but I just want to go ahead and give them a quick wash anyways. I figure better safe than sorry. So they're just over there sitting and soaking in some essential oils for a moment, and then I'll go rinse them off and we'll get to planting some of these. I have some plants like this Peperomia Jolie that has been suffering. It's not doing good in that pot anymore, and I need to bump it up to a bigger size. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and put it in some terracotta. I did get the bigger size of that pot to see if I wanted to keep it in there, but I'm thinking I'm going to go ahead and take that plant out of it, and then I'll wash it, and maybe I'll see if a African violet will fit in there. So I'm not sure if I want to do that or not though, because I kind of want to get all my African violets in terracotta. So we'll see. I'm taking a moment to rinse the soap residue off of my pots, so that way I don't end up with any soap scum on the outside. And now I'm just potting up some of my African violets. I like to use terracotta for them, so that way they can breathe, and it just soaks up the water so well when I bottom water them, and they're just happy. So this one I'm removing a little bit of the soil from the root ball, although the roots are pretty far in there. They're not coming out of the soil at all. You can't see any of them because African violets have a pretty small root system, and so this pot may look pretty small for it. Usually you want to go like an inch bigger than the pot or the plant itself for most plants when you're repotting them, but for African violets it doesn't really necessarily matter. And I'm using a fork to help get the soil in there because the sides are too small for my fingers to fit, and the fork works pretty good. I didn't worry about damaging the roots because there are no roots around the outside right there. So this pot, all the other pots I'm using are a little bit bigger, and I didn't need to worry about using the fork, of course, but these pots are going to be a perfectly fine size for them as well. You don't really need to worry about the pot size necessarily, as long as you don't go too terribly big. So I ran out of some African violet mix, so I'm just making my own. I use some regular potting mix with some extra worm castings. I always like to add extra worm castings and some perlite. And I am using a little bit more of a finer perlite because I use it for other mixes usually, just to mix in with my regular potting mix. So it's not quite as coarse as in the African violet mix, which would be a little bit more helpful for drainage. So I added extra because it's going to actually help hold in a little bit of moisture to a degree since it is so fine, but it is also going to still really help with the drainage. And so far it's been about a week since I planted these, and they are doing pretty darn good in with this mixture, so I'm pretty happy with it. And of course, if it does hold on to too much moisture, they are in terracotta, which can breathe and releases moisture more effectively than like a clay pot would that's glazed. I don't really have as much luck with clay pots and African violets as I do with terracotta. Even the ones that are actually for African violets, I don't do quite so well with those. You can plant several African violets together, but just know that They can stretch and get a little bit misshapen when you want to separate them, but they do perfectly fine planted with their root balls nice and closely together because they just have such a small root system. I added extra soil to this, just my regular potting mix, and that way there isn't quite so much drainage for this Hoya, but Hoyas do pretty well with a pretty good draining soil. Well, most Hoyas, especially these ones that are very succulent. This peperomia, on the other hand, look at those roots. They have not grown since I got that peperomia. I checked it a couple years ago before when I had it planted actually in that pot for about a year, and the roots hadn't grown. And so I haven't worried about it until it's been kind of droopy this year, so I wanted to repot it. I figured it needed a bigger pot because it's probably root bound, but nope. So I went ahead and put it in the smaller terracotta pot, and I'm hoping that having it in a terracotta pot, it will help the roots to actually grow towards the outside because it'll get more air circulation to an effect, I guess. This is pretty much my only root bound kind of plant that I really did much to the roots. It's just a Fittonia, of course, and it's very happy. It's doing pretty good so far, and I'm very pleased with it. And now this plant, it just needed a little bit of soil on the top because the cats have knocked it over and knocked out some soil. So there you go. I use pretty much a basic houseplant mix for my sansevierias because I find that they do really well here in the high desert with a pretty moisture loving soil to an extent, as long as it doesn't hold on to too much moisture, you know. This cistus had a little bit more of roots going around the bottom, so I broke them up a little bit. Not too much because they don't need a lot, just so that way their root memory can refocus itself and work outwards. I don't ever like really cut the roots or anything. The only time I ever really do that is if like I'm trying to force a succulent to go into something. So this plant is a guppy plant, and I forgot that the one that I have already is in a normal size smaller terracotta pot, so I ended up actually taking it out of this one and planting it in a little bit larger one because mine is really happy in its larger pot. They are like lipstick plants in a way because they like more moisture but not too much. They like to dry out, but they also like to have enough moisture for them, and so I find that having a little bit bigger pot, it does pretty well. And of course, when you take care of this one, you want to give it some cactus fertilizer or some indoor blooming fertilizer once in a while to help it bloom, but then when it is blooming, that's when you really want to just like give it some every couple of weeks. Whoa! Alright. This neon pothos hasn't grown much since I got it, so I wanted to take it apart and separate the cuttings and then plant it in my own soil to see if it will do better and will actually finally grow. And taking it apart like this is totally fine for the plant. It is a pothos and it is very resilient still. But look at how many roots there are. Those are amazing. You can see where the cuttings were taken of this and then where the roots started to grow. See, there's all these cuttings. That's how you, like, these always come. Is like a lot of the times they're not even very well rooted. It's ridiculous. So this has been sitting in the same pot for a long time, and obviously it did a good job of finally growing some roots. I'm very pleased about that. You like that? Ooh. Ooh. Oh. Check out this white variegation. Oh my gosh. Isn't that gorgeous? So with the pothos, I like to plant them a little tiny bit deeper than the root soil level. With all the other ones, I plant them at soil level or slightly above soil level. That's just how I plant my plants. But for the pothos, I like to plant them a little bit below soil level. Those ones that like to grab on with their roots kind of wherever, they just do fine that way. I feel like they do better almost. I don't know. It might just be me. So because the camera was in the way, I was a little bit messy. So I wanted to show you how to clean off your African violet leaves. You don't want to use any kind of water. So I'm just using a little paintbrush to brush off the bulk of everything. And then when I go and do my weekly dusting, I can take a microfiber cloth and just dust off any leftover pieces that are on there, because usually I have to get cat hair off of them anyways, because cat hair sticks to them like a magnet. It's crazy. And now I'm just watering everything. Everything else can be rinsed off with the hose, and I like to do that with my plants every once in a while anyways, just to help prevent bugs or just to get dust off of them. It seems to make them happy. I wanted to show you how I water my African violets. I will either use a tray or maybe I'll use just a bowl if it's for one violet, but sometimes I'll even get out my big sheet pan that has higher sides and I'll put all of my African violets in there, and then I just put water and sometimes my African violet fertilizer every other time that I water when they're not blooming, and then every time that I water when they are blooming. So everything over here on this table, actually everything that I got, I don't know really entirely where I want them to be. So I like to move my plants around a lot anyways, so they're just over here to acclimate to my house. They're in a western window a little ways away, so that way they're not going to get burned, but they also have plenty of sunlight to be happy. And everyone seems pretty happy so far. A couple of my African violet pots had a little bit extra soil on them, so I washed them off inside to avoid any splatter from the plants outside with the hose, because that's a little bit more powerful than my sink. And everything just looks so beautiful and I'm so happy. My kitchen's getting full to bursting with plants now and I'm very pleased about it. I hope that you found this video helpful, and if you have any extra questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the comment section below. But I'm also going to be rearranging some of those plants because I don't know really where I want all of my new houseplants to go yet. So they're just kind of sitting there as a holding place and letting them kind of acclimate to my house, and then I'm going to be moving them around. But I'm also going to be moving that black table back into my craft room and putting my telephone chair back over there as well, which I'm so excited for because that is my favorite spot in the whole house and I've been really missing it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful. I will talk to you later. Have a really great week. Bye! As always, he's just laying right next to me the whole entire time, probably getting covered in dirt. Oh, you are covered in dirt. Hi, sweet boy.